wonderful ideas and suggestions for guests and topics.
Great events, programs, and all the countries and listen to
Welcome to this week's segment of Dialogue Houston. I'm your host, Lawrence Payne. To those joining us perhaps for the first time here for HCC's TV Dialogue Houston, we can be found now every Tuesday and Thursday at 6 a.m. and again at 6 p.m. Again, also on Saturday afternoons at 3 p.m. As always, at the top of the hour, let me thank you very much for your calls, emails, and text messages concerning previous shows we've aired here on HCC's TV Dialogue Houston. For after all, this is your community affairs, public affairs show, now proudly in its 32nd season. We're always open to use your suggestions for guests and topics to be covered on upcoming subjects for the show. We have a great show planned for you this afternoon with someone that can help us kind of talk through the insanity, as some would call it, the morass, the hatefulness, the fear, the anxiety, the tension of a divided country, a divided state. And not so much so in Harris County and in Houston, but they're trying to draw that wedge. It's more than this discussion about red and blue and trying to get to a shade of purple. It's much more deeper than that. I think it goes to the soul and the character and values of who we are as human beings. So I wanted someone that could help talk about it from that perspective, who lives in that arena every day, who teaches that, who has students that have dialogue and conversation in his classroom about these subject matters. And so I asked our good friend Herb Agan from the University of Houston Psychology Department to join us. And we're going to just kind of explore, what does it mean, the human condition and the reality of where we are with so many things coming at us, where we have to make some decisions of where we stand, where we sit, and therefore what action and behaviors are we going to perform. That's enough, I think. Welcome, Herb.
Thank you, Larry. I'm glad to be here. Was there a question and all that?
Well, there's a question coming related to that.
Okay.
Someone asked me, Larry, and this is where this is going to get interesting today. They said, Larry, he said, I've been pondering with all that's going on, a deep question that there may not be an answer for, but it has come into my mind and my psyche more and more lately. And that is, what is the meaning of life? He said, because I thought from my tradition, my upbringing, my faith tradition, that I was here to serve my fellow human being to the best of my God-given potential. But that doesn't seem true for everyone. So how do we get so divided in even how we see the other human being, Herb?
Well, I've spent a good part of my adulthood, factually, since college, I guess, trying to be a part of that. And in fact, my Black friend said this is my street cred. When I heard Dr. King speak in person when I was 18, my freshman year in college, and what I heard from him in Lincoln, Nebraska, I didn't know he was the speaker of a Methodist conference that I went to. I just knew the drinking age was 18 up there instead of 21. And so there were 5,000 college students. So I went up there to maybe hustle chicks and drink, and I did neither. And then I was surprised to hear Dr. King. And his message was, and it took me years to find the message, but some minister had a Wallensack big old reel-to-reel thing, and he had taped it. And his message is that racism is not a civil rights issue, it's a sin issue. If you put yourself better than someone else, if you put yourself as more valuable, more important, more worthy, that's a deep theological issue that is at the heart of so many of our problems. So what I got from him is that there are no little people and there are no little places. And out of that, I realized I wanted to live a life of service. I didn't want to go, work in the insurance business. I didn't want to just go make money and maybe follow my passion on the weekends. I wanted to say, I want to be a part of a larger story that my life might contribute to something. And through some incidences that I went through, over the next several years, I quickly discovered that I was the problem I was trying to solve in other people. That the racism I hated in others, I found in myself. And that was a huge aha moment. So I realized that I needed a lot of self-discovery. And what we end up doing, Carl Jung said, to the degree you know your own darkness, you're able to understand the darkness of others. Meaning, to the degree you've explored your own depression, you can understand other people's depression. Anxieties, you understand other people's anxieties. Bullying, rejection, just loneliness, fears. And we live in a world, unfortunately, where we don't do much self-discovery or inner work. And we project it all out. And we see, when I'm pointing my finger at someone, I'll do it on camera. There's 3 fingers pointing back at me. And this is where, to deal with the log in my own eye, is the inner work of spirituality. And it takes mentors, it takes reading and a spiritual core of self-discovery and healing for a lifetime. But the whole wonderful American capitalistic system, materialistic system, says somehow if we buy the right things and know the right people and have the right income, then we don't have to experience the dark side of life. And that's a great myth that we all buy into it, including myself, where we're not looking at deeper things like, how do we get along? And everyone is my brother. Everyone is my sister. I tell my students, I just finished 25 years teaching at University of Houston and signed up for the fall. And I say, all of y'all I see you as sort of my children. I'm not going to pay for your college. I've done that for my own kids. But I see you as part of people that I owe to share my wisdom, experience, and insight with. And I wish other older adults had that feeling of not just giving back. Abraham Heschel, Rabbi Heschel says, what we need is not textbooks, but text people.
Mm-hmm. Let me move a little bit from that.
Yeah,
I want to put a pin on the racism discussion and just use that wonderful definition that Terry Sandwinder from the Institute of Healing of Racism uses, and then I want to move on. Racism is an emotional attachment to ignorance. Racism is an emotional attachment to ignorance. I'm gonna leave it at that. I want to move to power, because power is the thing that's being exercised today. Racism, sexism, homophobia, all that's part of it. But what is allowing things to run rampant is power, and unchecked, unbridled power, because now it's a question of minority, majority, who's the minority, who's the majority. It is a question of public policy. It is a question of doing things to people just because you can't do it for no real rational reason or reality, because you can do it from a power perspective. So power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts, absolutely, we know that. So how do we begin to talk about that in this power imbalance that we're in? How do we begin to understand how to move away from us and them and try to figure out there's got to be some common ground. There's got to be a middle somewhere.
Yeah. Let me just say this. When I discovered just the vast wonder and awe of being alive on the third rock and being aware and conscious that I'm aware that I'm aware, and I just begin to discover the richness of my own personality, my own essence. I found an inner power that I didn't need to project out, because I began to discover I'm the richest person on the planet. And I want to help others find their richness, the richness in being, richness in value and worth, and seeing others as having value and worth because they're fellow human beings, fellow people on the planet. And there's a power in that. Short of that, I need money, I need prestige, I need, white supremacy or some supremacy to make me more powerful than the next person. But once I discover how valuable I am as a person, then I no longer have to put somebody down in order to feel better. And most people who spend their life attacking others have not discovered their own worth. So they have to pick people they think are worthless to project on because they're not embracing their own humility and worthlessness that goes with our worthiness.
So,
And,
so if the real issue behind what you just said, and that you said it well, I think, but the real issue behind what you just said is a question of balance, and a question of balance is always a question of equity.
absolutely.
Equity. Either we see all human beings as the same, all human beings' lives matter, or they don't. There's no kind of sorter, there's no muscle manners, there's no in between. Either all lives matter and all lives are equal or not. So equity becomes the issue. In our reality of our socioeconomic, political, and spiritual divide, I might even add that one because that's what's being played out now. If we have said all the while that the road to equity is through empathy, the road to equity is through empathy, and the road to empathy is relationships that we nurture, build, and maintain on mutual trust and respect, because nothing happens without trust. Then it seems to all what you just said, and I totally agree with that whole premise, that we are kind of in this inflection point because we don't know each other. We don't socialize. We don't do things together. We're the most diverse community, but the most gated community. We're the most segregated community. That comes from Steve Kleinberg's work at Rice. So we got all this diversity. That doesn't mean that we hang out together, that we know each other, that we talk to each other, that we argue and disagree respectfully with each other, that we have safe dialogue with each other. It doesn't mean any of that. So the question becomes, where do we go with this?
Okay, so at the heart of sociology is birds of a feather flock together. Now, and there's nothing wrong with that because we all seek our likeness because that's where our safety zone is. What happens is life puts us in other zones where we have to step out of our comfort zone of being with people that we are like us. And that's actually where the richness starts. I was with a friend this weekend who said his wife told him that he had EDD. And I said, EDD? He said, empathy deficit disorder. He said that, he's often not empathic, which means to see life from somebody else's point of view, to be curious about their point of view. And that takes kind of a maturity and an awareness not to be so threatened by differences. And I just think in many ways, we're a very adolescent culture. There's a lot of people that their religion has not helped them broaden their hearts and minds to embrace others. And the system doesn't encourage that. But let me say, one of the things I wrote down was we have to make relationships a top priority in our life. And what many of us are doing is we're simply third graders living in an 11th grade world. And so we think we have a God-given right to remain as third graders in terms of our knowledge, our insight, our awareness. And I have a God-given right to maintain my prejudices and to see the world like I want to see it. And yet life does just the opposite. It brings other people into our life that force us to change and to advance up the scale toward 11th grade. And that takes courage. And let me share a quick story with you. Years ago, when I finished my master's degree, I got a job with Harris County Mental Health Center because I was white and a male. The staff, this was when Jimmy Carter was president, where we had a lot more social service money. And one of my ladies that I'm office next to, I had 70 people that had schizophrenia, were back and forth in Austin State Hospital, get off their medication. it was not the world I would have chosen to be in, but it was a world I needed to be in. And I just had to get over to learn to see the value behind the face of everyone, and to see the, as it were, the beauty of the person behind there. But one of my friends or office mates, her father died in Beaumont. And I find myself, and she'd been sharing how he had cancer. So I find myself on a Saturday morning thinking, you know, I'm going to go to her dad's funeral. And she told me some Catholic church in Beaumont. And why did I go? Because it was my office mate. I mean, it's a person I work with all the time. Why would I not go share in the grief of the loss of her father? It never, I mean, I wasn't thinking, well, she's Black, I'm going to go visit her to help the racial. That had nothing to do with it. It was, she was my office mate. And so I went up there, and it ended up being an epiphany for my life. I just went up to share, and I've written about this. It's a really funny story. But at the end of the being with the family and eating, this old Black man, the guys were out in the garage drinking and stuff in the party after the funeral, and he had a beautiful $1,000 pinstripe suit on, and his face looked much like yours, Larry, except he had white hair, white beard. And he said, "Sonny boy, come sit down here." And so he put two chairs together. Now, I spent time in the principal's office, so when somebody says that, I get a little anxious. And he leaned toward me and he said, "You're a fine man." And I said, "Well, thank you. That's very nice." And he said, "No, you didn't hear what I said." He said, "You're a fine man, because I know you left your wife and kids and came all the way over here to support your office mate. And you came into a different world. You know, you didn't know this was a total Black community or whatever." And he touches me on the chest, and he said, "I just want you to know how much we all appreciate you being here." I'm a drop of a pebble in a lake responding to a workmate, and that had a ripple effect. That's what relationships can do. That happens to everybody all the time, and we find a way to say no when life is trying to say yes.
Yep. Let me take a couple of quick minutes. That's a great story. Let me take a couple of quick minutes. Tell us a little bit, give us insights. I'm always curious, what are the young people, what are the students in your class? What are they saying about the realities of what they're living in right now? In the craziness of it all? What is their groundedness? What is their thing that keeps them trying to understand what's happening? And we're right out of time, so fairly quickly.
Yeah. So I had a colleague say the other day, call them kids, and I said, "Come on, if you're capable of sexually reproducing, nature says you're not a kid anymore." I'm not saying they're mature, but they're not kids. These are young adults. They don't have experience, but they have, I mean, they don't have maturity, but they have a lot of experiences. The kids are not hung up. I just did it. The students are not hung up with equity issues and racial issues and all that. You know, that's all old hat for them. They just value and appreciate people for who they are. And as often happens with the new generation of students, we had 2 suicides here on campus, and one of the students was in my class, sat on the first row. And I did go out to his funeral in Webster, and students were really upset because we really liked him a lot. These students are hungry to grow and make a difference in life. And since it's psychology, they often, I'm encouraging them, why are you here? And I think they have a bigger story to embrace, and many of them want to do that.
Herb, that was, I'm sorry, anything else to add?
It's just incredibly encouraging.
Good.
And yeah.
And I think that's the hope. The hope is in those young people.
It is.
Future generations.
And there's a great quote that says, when society heals, when older people are willing to plant trees whose shade they will never enjoy.
Yep.
And I wish older people would stop retiring and get in the business of sharing their gold and wisdom and humor with younger people. they need us.
Well, one more quick question for you. Where do you see all this going? We're getting ready to perhaps put the 10 Commandments back into schools. We're going to have chaplains in the schools. We're going to have unarmed chaplains in the schools for whatever that's worth, which is not going to help the situation much. There's a sense that if we just got religion back in practice, that it would solve all our problems. And I'm a prayerful person. You are. Praying is not enough. Yes, we should pray, but prayer has to be backed up with some action and passing the laws that outlaw those guns and those rifles. AR-15 is the key. But we keep wanting to do rather everything else except what we should do. And I find that very interesting. And quickly, just about 30 seconds, and we got to go.
Yeah, the opposite of faith is certainty. Certainty. And people want certainty, but you don't grow in certainty. You don't evolve. You don't learn. You only do that when it's uncertain. And people want certainty at all costs. And we want these laws and rules to abide by, so we become automatons, and we don't wrestle with the intent to love and to care and to seek the better way. Bad theology produces a terrible society. And that's what a lot of these people are doing. And it's just insane. It's not an evolved society like many of our heroes from many different traditions, that love and kindness is the ethic and getting to know people and trust people. But, people feed on this fear and they push for certainty to control the fears. And you have to find the certainty in the midst of the uncertainty, I think. And so I'm always somewhat of an optimist, and I'm as scared as everyone, but we need to, one person at a time, reach out and care, listen, and take time, and not be in a hurry to go past people. How are you doing? No, I ask you how you're doing. Can you be honest and vulnerable with me? And we don't do that enough.
Well, Herb, let me ask you a quick other question, because I'll give you a little bit of my time. What do you see? I'm going to switch gears again. I love switching gears. So let me get off on another subject, another topic. You've been part of this wonderful Houston 2036 project. You've attended some of our sessions, and I thank you for doing so. What have you gleaned from those and the people that have come, that you've taken the time, I've watched you, to interact with, to introduce yourselves and to carry on conversations, get to know some of them? Where do you see their sense of where we're headed as Houstonians? Does it give you hope? Does it give you a sense of their resiliency, or what?
Yeah, Carl Jung, who I've studied for 40 years, he said the hope is not in the mass movement, but it's enough individuals daring to become nature's intent or becoming their authentic self. And in these folks that meet with us in the 2036 are just quality people who deep inside are people of character and vision. And, I share emails every time and follow up with phone calls, and we get together to try to find some synergy. And that's why it's beautiful that what we're doing, because you just don't know who it is that gets transformed, who affects other people. And I'm sort of bit by bit, we get there.
Well, Herb, I want to thank you for being part of the Dialogue Houston this week. We run out of time all too soon. We could talk for a while, you and I, but we've covered some good territory. I want to say that going forward, we'll continue to do this together. Maybe we'll get a little panel together one day and do this and have a deeper dive at it. But again, thank you for being on Dialogue Houston. I'm going to close out with some closing thoughts, and we'll move forward. Again, thank you.
Thank you, Larry. Keep up the good work.
Thank you, sir. This journey that we're on, it seems to me now, needs to focus on perhaps 5 important pieces. And each one of them have a way to flesh out and to come up with some guardrails and some specificities to be able to be successful. It is all about fostering the human condition and doing that through human connections. We were meant not just to thrive, not just to survive, nor even thrive. We were meant to flourish. It's about human flourishing to the fullest of our God-given potential. And we as other human beings should help each other do that. The second is dialogue, a much more richer and deeper dialogue, adapting to today's civic landscape and being very honest in dialogue what our aims and goals are for all of us together. It's a question of humanity. It's a question of democracy. To develop a framework for building trust and have trust be the cornerstone of what we're trying to do, because nothing happens without trust. Someone does not do anything for or to anyone they do not trust. It is that phrase you've heard, deliberative democracy, to live ethical lives with meaning, purpose, and joy. And we've gotten so far away from that for so many people. It's such a tension, it's such an anxiety, it's fear, it's us, it's them, it's all of that. And all of this always comes back to what? Leadership. Leadership that is relational, intelligent, understands how to engage both civically with citizens, to engage with customers, clients, consumers, whatever you want to call them, congregants, to bring them all into the fold, if you will, and understand that we have to come to some conclusion and some solutions on this. The answer, of course, is equity and justice, which has always been. We're good at charity. We love downstream, reactionary. We love downstream. We got to get good at upstream. Upstream is justice. Upstream is solving the problem once and for all. And so we have to get comfortable with justice, with equity, because charity is not going to get us where we need to go all these many years that we've been trying to do it that way. So I look forward to fleshing this out with you as we go forward through Dialogue Houston. We'll have guests on in the future that will help us kind of walk through some of this. As always, we look forward to you joining us in future segments. Until then, be safe and be well. And as always, peace, power, and love.